Greetings and welcome to another episode of Consular Conversations, a monthly program where we discuss consular issues that are important to Jamaican citizens and also to American citizens living and visiting Jamaica. My name is Steffo Lehman. I'm a consular officer based here at the U.S. Embassy in Kingston, Jamaica. Today we are talking about a very important issue, and that is our anticipated increase in visa demands to travel to the United States to attend important sporting events that we know about, namely the World Cup, which is happening in the U.S. next year, and we're crossing our fingers for the Reggae Boys to qualify, but also the Olympics in 2028. And here with us today to discuss visa issues related to these big events is David Johnson. He's the section chief of the non-immigrant visa section. He's also a walking encyclopedia on any issue related to visas. So if people out there are interested in visas, now's the time to contact the U.S. Embassy using your social media platforms, and we're happy to answer as many questions as possible. But before we do so, David, thank you very much for joining us today.
Sure, my pleasure. You may have overpromised the encyclopedic knowledge, but I'll take that.
No, I have not. But anyway, so before we get into the meat of it, if you could just tell us about yourself.
Sure. As you said, I'm the non-immigrant visa unit chief here, which means that I oversee basically everything that happens after that long line that you all see on Old Hope Road every morning. We process between 150 and 190,000 visa applications in the NIV unit every year. And so I oversee the officers that make those adjudications, that conduct those interviews. I'm from the U.S., obviously. I'm from the state of Michigan originally, but I've been in Jamaica for a couple of years. I'm really enjoying myself so far and happy to do the work here.
What should Jamaicans know about the wonderful state of Michigan?
I think that a lot of Jamaicans already know a lot about Michigan because one of the main tourist attractions there is Mackinac Island and Mackinac City, the bridge that connects Lower Michigan and Upper Michigan. Michigan's in two separate pieces in the U.S. if you look at the map. And so a lot of Jamaicans go and work on the H-2B program in hospitality in Mackinac Island. Beyond that, it's a nature wonderland. I'm from the upper part of Michigan, so a lot of beautiful nature up there.
It's a great city of Detroit, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, so back to the program, or the topic, how might major sporting events such as the World Cup and the Olympics impact the visa process here in Jamaica?
Sure, good question. For right now, our demand is relatively low for B1, B2 visas. We can accommodate most visa applicants within 10 to 12 days of their application, accommodate them with an interview. In the past, that wait time has been as much as 180 days or more. We've gotten it down over the last couple of years. So, but as these major events approach and more people are interested in going to the U.S. for the World Cup or for the Olympics, you can expect that demand to increase. And so people who are planning on that travel, whether it's for those reasons or just around that time, you want to make sure you have that visa in your passport well in advance of your need to travel. We always say it's important to plan for the emergency before the emergency happens. I see a lot of expedite requests for people who have a sudden and often unfortunate need for travel, whether it be for a funeral or some emergency in the U.S. And if they had their visa already, 6 months or a year ago, then that's one less thing to worry about, right? But then suddenly it becomes urgent, and suddenly you need to work fast to get into the embassy and get that appointment done. So the farther in advance you plan for things that are going to happen, like a vacation or travel for the World Cup or for the Olympics, then you have, that's one fewer box to check off your list. Like all you have to do then is focus on packing and getting your gear and your jerseys and stuff ready for travel. Just have the visa done well in advance, because come 2026, I expect our demand is going to be a lot higher and wait times will be a lot longer for those tourist visas.
So Tanisha, we're already getting messages from our online audience, and Tanisha from Clarendon is asking something related. What if someone does have urgent travel? Can visa applicants request an earlier appointment?
Yeah, so through that same website where once you've filled out the online application, the DS-160 form, then you go in to pay the fee and schedule your appointment. The first thing is you have to actually have an appointment on the books. So you take the first available appointment, whether that's 10, 12, 15 days in the future. But if your intended travel is much sooner than that, let's say you have something emergent to attend this weekend, you can then submit an expedite request. the consular manager, usually myself or someone serving in my capacity, reviews those every day, usually twice a day, just to see what the nature of the expedite request is. And if the justification for the request meets our criteria, then we'll usually approve those whenever we can to make sure that a qualified applicant can get to their their emergency in time.
Now, what are some of the most important documents or steps that an applicant should have ready before applying for a B1, B2 visa?
Okay. Yeah, the documents for B1, B2 are fairly simple. You need your passport first and foremost. That's your travel document. You can't travel without a passport, and it also has to be in usable condition. So if it's wet, badly damaged, missing pages, get your new passport before you come to us. Otherwise, even if you're qualified, we're going to send you away to get a new passport before we can put a visa in it. We can't put a visa into a wrinkly passport in most cases. But your passport, your DS-160 confirmation page, that's where you've gone on, filled out the online application, and then printed out the page to confirm that you've done so. You bring that with a passport size photo in your passport, and that's really all that's required for a B1, B2 visa. Now, people come to us with stacks of documents, obviously. Sometimes they'll come with an invitation. They'll come with a death certificate for a funeral, for example, or come with a letter from a sports club indicating that they're going to play in a tournament or something like that. People can have a wide range of documents, but none of those is required, right? Those are all things that you bring just in case a consular officer might ask for it. It's not primarily a document-based process, though. It's an interview-based process. We have the application that you filled out online. We have that in front of us, and we're trying to fill in the gaps and try to understand what your purpose of travel is, trying to understand your qualifications, and if another document is required to make that assessment, we'll request that. So it's good to come prepared and have those things with you, but the only thing that's required really, passport, photo, you paid your fee, you made your appointment.
Okay. And if you could satisfy one of my own personal curiosities, why is it called a B1, B2? Why don't we just call it a tourist visa?
Because the way that the U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act is written from whatever year that dates back to, honestly, I don't have that offhand, but it goes from A through V, I think, are the various visa classes, and just the way they're enumerated. The A visa class is for official travelers. B happened to be the one that, when they wrote the law out in order, happened to be the one that landed on tourism and pleasure.
Okay. We have another question from an online viewer from Lovelet on X, and she would like to know if there are any special provisions made during the interview for applicants who have special needs.
It's a good question. We're very accommodating. We try to make our facility as accessible as possible for any applicant that might come to us. We do have wheelchairs. People can bring their own interpreters, translators. If someone has challenges that are met or assisted by a family member, we'll accommodate that, and they can be accompanied by a family member. That said, if someone has a particularly acute need that couldn't be met, where they wouldn't have what they'd perceive to be a fair or comfortable interview during the normal interview hours, we do offer monthly quiet hours appointments. If you go to our website and go through that Visa Navigator on the embassy's website, one of the questions is about special accommodations. It wouldn't get you a faster appointment. In fact, it'll move your appointment date back if you want to request those quiet hours appointments. But if someone has a sensory need or is not able to hear or needs to bring an interpreter, they can request one of those quiet hours appointments. Like I say, it'll be a later appointment than what you would have gotten by scheduling normally, but we can make those accommodations just to provide the justification for it, and we'll respond to that by email.
And they go to a special room, and
it's still in the same general waiting room usually. I mean, we can have it in a privacy booth, but during those hours, it's outside of our normal appointment hours, so it is quiet. It's an empty waiting room at that point.
Now, how long is a visa valid, and how long can a B1, B2 visitor actually stay in the United States?
Sure, the validity depends. So the maximum validity for a B1, B2 visa, that's based on reciprocity, which means how countries treat each other, right? The maximum validity for a Jamaican applying for a B1, B2 visa is 10 years, multiple entries. And that's usually what we're able to issue. Now, does that mean you can go to the US and stay for 10 years? Absolutely not. You're a tourist, you're a temporary visitor. The non-immigrant visa presumes that you are going to the US for a brief visit and you're returning to your home country at the end of your intended activities there, right? When you get to the port of entry, the visa gives you permission to go to a U.S. port of entry and say, a consular officer found me qualified, I'm here for this reason, and then the Customs and Border Protection Officer is the one who determines how long you're actually allowed to stay. For a B1, B2 visa, usually the standard across the board response is they're going to give you a maximum of 6 months there. Now, does that mean that you should or can stay in the US for 6 months? Probably not, right? I mean, we have jobs, we have livelihoods. You live in Jamaica, you live in your home country. And so staying in the US for such an extended period of time raises questions about what you're doing in the US to support yourself for that period of time. Now, there's some flexibility there. It depends on your purpose, right? If you're going for long-term medical treatment, or you're going to, care for your adult daughter while they're having a child in the U.S., something like that, then there are reasonable accommodations for someone to stay in the U.S. for an extended period of time. But for someone who's going on vacation, if they say they're going for 2 weeks and they go for 4 months, well, when the time comes around to renew that visa, there are going to be reasonable questions about what you do in the U.S. for 4 months to support yourself.
Like how could you afford a
exactly?
Stay
Yeah.
without working?
Yeah.
Essentially. Interesting.
I think, and the Jamaican government handles visitors the same way. That if someone stays here for longer than 3 months, that raises questions about what you can't work without authorization in Jamaica. You can't work without authorization in the U.S., and you won't be authorized for work on a B1, B2 visa.
Now, explain. So, a visa really does not guarantee you entry into the country. A visa simply, if I'm not mistaken, allows you to get on the plane and to travel to the U.S. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, it's 2 steps in the process, right? The Department of State issues visas, and the Department of Homeland Security admits visitors who have that permission to enter, or that permission to apply for entry. So our business here is to grant non-immigrant visas to applicants that we deem qualified. They meet the qualifications for a B1, B2 visa. Once they have that visa in their passport, that gives them multiple opportunities over the course of 10 years, if the validity was granted for full validity, to go to a port of entry and say what they're here for. CBP, Customs and Border Protection, the guys at the border, they're the ones who say, okay, I agree with the consular officer. It appears you are here for that purpose, and you're admitted for this period of time. Now, I will say that not every B1, B2 visa is granted for the full 10 years. It can depend. There are a lot of factors that a consular officer can consider to limit validity as needed, and that's infrequent, but it does happen on occasion.
So, for example, if a child might want to go for a sporting event
that only lasts 1 week, they might not get a 10-year visa.
Right, that's possible.
So John from Instagram is saying, my girlfriend is from a European country, but she now lives in Jamaica. Does she need to apply for a visa to enter the U.S.?
Sure, it all depends on what passport you're applying on. It's nationality based, not residence based. So someone who has a passport from a European country that would qualify for the visa waiver program, which Jamaica is not a part of, if they're living in Jamaica or anywhere else, they can still apply for entry through the visa waiver program through what's called ESTA. I can't think of what that acronym stands for right now. But if her nationality lets her be a part of the visa waiver program, she wouldn't necessarily need a visa. Now, having a visa does give you a little more flexibility for travel than the visa waiver program does. You can stay for a little bit longer, and you don't need to submit the ESTA application every time you travel, because you have that visa that allows you to go to the port of entry multiple times.
So Lanny from Facebook wants to know if she shows her travel ticket, say she bought an airline ticket, does she need to show that when applying for a visa?
Oh, no. In fact, we discourage anyone from making non-refundable travel arrangements before they have a visa. The visa should be in your passport before you do put any money down for your trip, anything non-refundable anyway. So no, we don't need to see an itinerary. The one exception for that, I guess, would be if you're applying for a transit visa. One of the requirements of the transit visa, which is a C1 visa, is that you show your intended travel. You don't need to have paid for a ticket necessarily, but you need to show what the intended travel is to qualify for a C1. But for a B1, B2 visa, we don't need to have confirmed specific travel plans. You should be able to speak about what your intended travel would be were you granted the visa.
Mm-hmm. So Omar from Santa Cruz in St. Elizabeth Parish asks, if I have been refused a visa before, am I allowed to reapply?
Yeah, there's nothing preventing anyone from submitting a visa application. There's no barrier to it, right? You can go on, fill out the DS-160, pay your fee, and schedule an appointment, no matter how recently you've applied for a visa in the past, how recently you've been refused. However, that said, if you've been refused a visa recently under a certain section of the law, and you apply again, the odds are, I mean, you're entitled to a fair consideration of the case and a fair consideration of the application, and you'll see a different consular officer than the one you saw last time, but they're going to see the same set of facts, and they're going to see what was presented at the last interview as well. So unless something has materially changed in your situation, the odds are that same section of the law under which you were ineligible before is still going to apply now. Now, a refusal under 214B, which is the most common refusal that we have for a B1B2 visa, that just means that you didn't satisfy the consular officer qualifications for the visa. It has to do a lot with, ties to your home country, economic solvency that wouldn't require you to work in the U.S. to support yourself, something like that. That's not a permanent ineligibility. And there are circumstances that can change in a person's life. Someone who is refused 214B in their 20s may very well qualify in their 30s or 40s. I'm not saying that you should come back a year or 2 years or 10 years later and apply again, because you might still be ineligible, but it is not a permanent ineligibility. Now, there are many ineligibilities that are permanent. Someone who's committed a crime involving moral turpitude, someone who's been convicted of a substance abuse related crime, those are permanent. There are time-bound ineligibilities too. For someone who's stayed in the U.S. Unlawfully for more than a year, they're ineligible for 10 years from when they depart the U.S. again. So there are some that are permanent, some that are time-bound, and some that can be overcome as soon as circumstances change. 214B can be overcome as soon as someone's circumstances materially change.
You mentioned 214B various times. Can you explain exactly what 214B is?
Sorry, that's a little jargon. Yeah, I realize 214B is just another section of the Immigration and Nationality Act. The same way I was talking about before, how the A, B, C, D visa classes are all spelled out in what we call the INA. It's the U.S. immigration law. 214B is another section of that same law. It's widely available. You can read it online. If you've ever been refused a visa before, you got that letter here at the embassy that explains it pretty clearly. It just says that every non-immigrant visa applicant is presumed to be an immigrant until they convince the consular officer otherwise, until they satisfy a consular officer that they are qualified for the visa. So we are legally required as consular officers, whenever someone comes to us applying for a non-immigrant visa, we have to look at that application and assume that the person applying wants to be an immigrant.
So wants to stay there long-term, or if
Not try to stay there permanently under illegal status.
That, or just otherwise not comply with the visa class. So immigrant is broadly defined by the law in this case. It doesn't just mean someone who's going to go and stay there forever. It means someone who's going to go and do something other than what the visa class allows them to do. So for a B1, B2 visa for example, it could mean that they're presumed to be someone who's going to go and live there, or it could mean someone who's going to go and do something that isn't just business or pleasure. Someone who's going to go and work, for example, not allowed on the B1, B2 visa. So that's a presumption that they have to overcome at the interview. And it can be overcome, relatively quickly. Our interviews are fast, as I'm sure most people who have been here know. Whether you're issued or refused, it usually happens in a matter of a couple of minutes. And that's because the officers are trained to review the application quickly, to look at what's relevant, to ask questions about what's relevant, and to come to that decision. It's not an exhaustive process, but we'll ask the questions that we need to ask to make that decision. And like I say, 214B, it applies frequently, but it can be overcome over time.
They can reapply over time.
With a change in circumstances, yep.
Now,
Just maybe a nuanced question here. The difference between a non-immigrant visa and an immigrant visa. So there's two broad sections. Can you explain what the difference is between a non-immigrant visa and an immigrant visa process?
Sure. I mean, the basics are that a non-immigrant visa is a temporary thing, that you're going to the U.S. for a specific purpose for a set period of time, after which you'll return to your home country. An immigrant visa is someone who intends to go to the U.S. and live there, stay there.
Petitioned by.
And yeah, it requires someone on the U.S. side petitioning for that. Usually it's family based. A spouse, a parent, a child petitions for their relative to come and immigrate and stay with them.
so many people think that just by being
Invited by a family member or asked to come to the U.S. by a potential employer sort of guarantees them a visa. Is that true?
No. So an invitation is neither a prerequisite nor is it a compelling factor in a visa application. People come all the time and apply for a visa who don't have any connection to the U.S., who just want to go for shopping or for the World Cup. No one needs to invite you for that. The World Cup's not going to invite you unless you're, one of the reggae boys, hopefully. But you'd still come, present your purpose of travel, and then the officer would adjudicate based on your ties to Jamaica and on what your purpose is. Having a letter of invitation, it's likely something that's not going to come up at the interview. A lot of people bring that with them just in case, to show that I'm going to see my uncle. My uncle's going to provide this and this and this. It's possible that an officer will want to see that or be curious about that or ask a question about that. But in all likelihood, the judgment, the decision is going to be made based on the application and based on the interview questions, not based on any document that's brought to the interview.
We commonly get
applicants who have a family member that is graduating from some sort of military training. So if they have a family member in the U.S. military, that also does not guarantee them a visa.
Right. Now, and I will say, back to the expedite question, though, that is relevant for granting an expedited appointment. Granting an expedited appointment does not mean you're going to be granted a visa, but it will, a compelling and urgent purpose of travel, such as attending a graduation, attending a wedding, attending a funeral. We want to facilitate that travel for qualified travelers, for special family events, for once in a lifetime opportunities like that. You still need to qualify for the visa, and having that compelling purpose of travel may get you in the door faster, depending on the closeness of the family member, how soon the event is, and based on our capacity too. We just have a limited number of officers, and so if we don't have enough space or time, then we won't be able to do it. But it'll get you in the door faster. Doesn't mean the visa is going to be issued. You still have to qualify.
Deviating slightly from a B1, B2, we also have a lot of students applying. What do students need to know nowadays when they apply for a visa at the USMC?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It was widely publicized that our student visa processing was paused for a short time. It's since been reopened. We're seeing lots of F, M, and J visa applicants now. It's F and M visa applicants are student visa applicants. J visa applicants are for exchange visitors who go for summer work travel is a big thing that's happening right now. Most of them are already there already, but it's also for interns, trainees, teachers travel on those visas. Demand for that spikes quite a bit in late July and through the month of August as the school year rolls around. And so as soon as if you're applying for an F, M, or J student visa, as soon as you have your documents in order, that's the I-20 form for an F or M, or the DS 2019 form for a J1 visa applicant. As soon as you have that, schedule your appointment. Make sure you get on the books now, otherwise it's going to fill up quickly, and you may find yourself, cutting it too close for your school or for your employer. So make those appointments now. There has been some changes in the way that student visas are handled and adjudicated here, and so make sure you check travel.state.gov. Check the embassy for the latest on what requirements, on how those requirements change. But we are, it's a priority visa class, so we're trying to get those students and exchange visitors who are qualified, trying to get them to their places of, trying to get them to the destinations quickly on time.
So you said that the process has slightly changed. How has that changed?
Yeah, so we're doing some expanded vetting of student and exchange visitor visa applicants. So for a long time, the DS-160 application form for all non-immigrant visa applicants has requested social media information, your social media handles. That's true of B1, B2s, it's true of everybody. The one thing that's different for FM and J is that once they come in, if they're otherwise qualified for the visa, then their application is going to be refused at the interview under Section 221G, which just means that we're doing some administrative processing, and then we'll have to do an online presence review based on those social media handles.
And typically, how long does that take?
I don't want to give a firm timeline on that because it can vary quite a bit, but we do prioritize those based on program start dates. And in general, I think that we're doing those reviews within 1 to 3 business days.
So let's get back to our online
Viewers, Tanisha Nelson McGregor from Facebook wants to know, how long after your visa expires should you apply for a renewal?
You can apply for renewal anytime after your visa is issued, frankly. I mean, you pay a $185 visa fee, and if you get a 10-year visa, you want to use as much of that validity as possible before you go for the renewal. But you should apply for your renewal no more than 12 months after it expires to qualify for an interview waiver. If your visa is more than 12 months expired, you'll have to come in for an interview regardless. If it's 12 months or less, and you've traveled compliantly, used the visa well, then you may qualify for a waiver of the interview.
And how much does it cost now to apply for a visa?
Yeah, the visa fee, it increased a few years ago from $160 to $185. For as long as I've been here, it's been $185 for the B1, B2. For petition-based visas, it's $205 plus relevant fees that the petitioner pays in the U.S. But for B1, B2, it's $185. Now, it's been publicized widely that there are some new fees that are likely going to be rolled out in the next few months to the next year. Unclear exactly what the mechanism is for collecting those fees, because that's not a Department of State fee. It's USCIS, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, that's imposing those fees. And so not yet clear when that's rolled out or how it'll be collected. But again, once we know that, that's going to be out there on travel.state.gov. It's going to be on the embassy website. We'll make sure you know as soon as we know.
So we want to encourage viewers to visit travel.state.gov, also our website.
Yeah, travel.state.gov is always, let me say that slower, travel.state.gov is always like the most up-to-date, relevant information on what's required for the visa class. The embassy tries to keep up with that too. So our own website will try to reflect as closely and as quickly as possible what's on TSG.
Okay, so we have another viewer, this time on X. Hi. Hi, David. How do you know if your visa interview has been waived? Also, should you bring your payment receipt to drop off when you drop off your documents for a visa waiver?
So on the second question, actually, I don't know. It's once you're given instructions to drop off your documents for interview waiver, it tells you exactly what to include in there. I think that the fee receipt is already presumed paid, because you won't be allowed to drop it off unless the fee's been paid already. Like, you can't schedule an interview until we've confirmed that you paid the fee. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of a bottleneck, a stop in the process. So once you're given what's called the courier in instructions to bring your passport to the document service center or to send it in through DHL, that's when you know that your interview may be waived. All right. You then submit the documents. It's possible at that point that a consular officer will review your case and then later on require an interview. And so you'll get your passport back with a letter explaining that you need to schedule an interview at that point. So you'll get your passport back one way or the other, either with the visa in it or with a letter explaining that you have to come for an interview.
So we're approaching quickly our half an hour mark. Is there something else that you think is important to inform our audiences that we haven't already discussed?
That's a good question. No, I think we've covered a lot of ground already. I think we've got some good questions. I think it's important to just come prepared, and more than anything, be honest in your application. All right, your visa application and your immigration history is something that follows you wherever you go, from one application to the next. We take the integrity of the visa process very seriously. So before you get caught up with someone who's trying to coach you on the process or trying to give you a way around the honest path, keep in mind that misrepresentation or dishonesty in a visa application is something that's gonna stay with you. And a mistake that you make now on your visa application, misrepresenting something, could make you ineligible forever. Even if in the future you have a family-based immigration path, or you have a job waiting for you, or you're applying to be a student. All of those doors can be closed by that mistake of misrepresenting something in a visa application. So honesty. If you're not qualified for a visa now, it's not the end of the world. If you refuse 214B now, it doesn't mean that it's forever, right? Circumstances change, and they frequently do. But we encourage people to wait until the circumstances have changed, and to always present yourself honestly and present at the interview honestly.
So we covered more than just B1, B2s for the World Cup and Olympics. And so hopefully that was very...
I forgot that was the topic, honestly. Yeah.
Hopefully that was very useful to our viewers. But if you are dreaming of going to the U.S. to support the Reggae Boys, and again, we cross our fingers that they'll qualify or attend the Olympics. As David Johnson has stressed, be early or apply early, because appointments fill up fast before major events. Be truthful. And again, also interesting, visa allows travel to the U.S., but it does not guarantee entry. That depends on the Border Patrol. Right. So with those final comments, we wish you the best in your application process. We hope this program was useful. And again, I want to stress, we cross our fingers for the Reggae Boys. The World Cup is always better when the Jamaican team participates. So thank you very much for tuning into our program, and we'll see you next month.